right, it being 7 p.m. on Wednesday, May 31st, 2023, we will begin this tonight's select board meeting. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? There being none. The next item on the agenda is the American Rescue Plan Act funding recommendations. I will accept a motion to go out of order until the proper people here.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. The third item on the agenda is the ALS paramedic service update. Mr. Ward had reached out to the chair of the Finance Committee, and we're going to look to invite them to our to next week's meeting to see if that works. We're meeting on 2 days after the town meeting, and then if they're unable to make that meeting, then we can work on another meeting date that works for everybody.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is administrative business. And there are no items under administrative business. Under old and new business, does anybody have anything they want to bring up? No.
Good.
Moving on to community announcements. We have 3 community announcements this evening. The first is a summer concert series. The Clinton Parks and Recreation Summer Concert Series kicks off Tuesday, June 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Central Park with a performance by Fiesta del Toro. The series runs every Tuesday through August 29th, with the exception of July 4th. In case of rain, the concerts are postponed until Wednesday evening. For more information, visit clintonrec.com. That's clintonrec.com. Open Space and Recreation Plan. The town is updating its open space and recreation plan and needs volunteers with an interest or expertise in parks, open space, conservation, recreation, or a similar field to serve on the committee. The Select Board will be appointing 2 citizens to be on the committee. Interested individuals should submit a letter of interest and/or resume to the Select Board by June 2nd, 2023, in order to be considered for the citizens' seats. More information is on the town website. Clinton Area Chamber of Commerce. Please join the Clinton Area Chamber of Commerce for a free informational session on Tuesday, June 6th at 8:30 a.m. or 4 p.m. at the Museum of Russian Icons. You will have an opportunity to interact with your fellow chamber members, meet members of the chamber board, and ask questions. For more information, visit worcesterchamber.org or email Kristen Luna at kluna@worcesterchamber.org. So that's worcesterchamber.org, or email Kristen Luna at kluna, K-L-U-N-A, at worcesterchamber.org.
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
You do have to register for that, so it is an RSVP event.
Very good. All right, so please register in advance for the Clinton Area Chamber of Commerce event on Tuesday, June 6th at 8:30 a.m. or 4 p.m. at the Museum of Russian Icons. Thank you. There was no general correspondence. All right, so we can go back to the ARPA funding recommendations. I know that had been brought up at a previous meeting. Looking at the line items for some of the requests and potentially coming up with a list of priorities, and then some that we can reconsider at a later date. Do we Sure.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. I thought when we left last week, the week before, that we stated we were only going to address two this week, and it was going to be the police department and wheat.
Correct. As far as voting on it, right? So then it would basically be looking at the next, for our next meeting, is there anything on here that we view as being a priority for the next meeting? But yes, you were correct. The two tonight are going to be the wheat community connections. So when Jody Bridell arrives, and then the police department communications when Chief Brian Coyne arrives. But that's all we would be voting on this evening.
Mr. Chair, I requested this strand renovations to be on the agenda.
It is on there as well, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, all right.
There's three, yep. Discussion to allocate funds for Strand Theater renovations, you're correct.
Right, and I was under the assumption, having that discussion would be the potential for a vote on that issue.
You're right.
Okay, all right.
You're right, my fault. You're correct, yeah. So outside of that, it looks like the column to the far right, what has been approved already. So our last meeting, I believe, we had approved for the downtown coordinator position, the $82,800. So that is reflected in the right versus the left column, which was the original request. So, in looking at the water and sewer infrastructure, the culvert cap repairs in the parking lot at Clinton Elementary School, that parking lot has been, I don't even know how to appropriately describe it, but it's been nothing short of a disaster. I know the town has done everything they can to try to patch it. It's a significant hazard as far as I'm concerned, as there's still cracks. There's a great potential for somebody to roll an ankle getting out of a car or whatnot.
Mr. Chair, which line item are you
That would
talking
be number 21 under water and sewer infrastructure.
Yep.
So I don't know if we'd like to bring in whether that's Mr. McGowan and Mr. Farragher to our next meeting to look at that. But either way, that needs to be addressed much sooner than later. It's impossible for the town to keep up with the patch jobs.
Right.
That's going to be at the next meeting?
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm throwing it out there. If anybody is in agreement and thinks that we should, or disagrees and thinks we should wait, that's all.
I'm not really, I can understand the importance of that update. I'm kind of the mindset, I don't know if, it's the school's building anyway, so it's out of our purview, but I kind of wish we would move on from that building. It just seems like it's seen its better days, and it's starting to be kind of a maintenance headache.
Which one are we talking about?
So this would be behind this is the Clinton Elementary School.
Oh,
parking
I was
lot.
dating
Yeah.
myself. I'm thinking,
No,
of
yeah.
the old Clinton Elementary School.
No, so
okay, all
this
right.
is behind, so right now that there is a.
Understood, yep, okay, yep.
That concrete.
That's really
Yeah.
bad. Yep, I agree with you.
So to your point, if we think anybody in addition to Mr. McGowan and Mr. Farragher should be there, then we could invite them. I know that, is it through the community block grant that Mr. Duffy had looked at the Ash Street renovation? I don't know what the timeline on that is supposed to be. I don't know if they can coincide with one another or.
Yeah, it should be something coming up. Usually the grants are due in February, so the awards would be coming out pretty soon.
Okay. All right, so I guess we can ask them about that, because maybe we can, essentially plan those projects. If they can be done together or in coordination with one another.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
is there a reason that's part of ARPA and not regular capital planning?
Which one?
The number 21, culvert cap repairs and parking lot at Clinton Elementary School.
Yeah,
I thought
think
we
there's-
talked about the parking lot, updating that in the past.
Right. This year is just mostly concerned about there's a concrete cap on that culvert, and it's deteriorating on the edges, and now it started on the edges where it butts up to the pavement, but now there's rebar coming through, and it's really starting to break down. So they're looking to try to put a new concrete cap on that. That's
Okay.
the major thing.
So it's more the culvert than the
If
parking
there's money
lot.
to do other parking lot improvements, that's fine, but it's mostly trying to protect that cap.
Thank you.
The question is, I think, I know Mr. Duffy has been doing a lot of research on this, but I think we need to make sure that it's an eligible expense as well too, and that it's not, there's certain infrastructure that can be done. It's not all infrastructure, so it's mostly focused on water improvements. So if we'd have to double check to make sure this is eligible. So even though we have the discretion of how it's spent, we still have to report it to the federal government, and they still audit to make sure that it followed the guidelines of the final rule from the Treasury.
All right. So I guess we can wait to hear from Mr. Duffy if we can look into that and have an answer before we post the agenda for next week. If we can get it on there, great.
Yep.
If it's something that has to wait, then that's fine too. Was there anything else on here that we wanted to move forward with for considering a vote? What about the carriage house design and study improvements?
I'm fine waiting on that one. I was thinking digital signboards, that seems like a low-hanging fruit. At least we can get bids on that. I think everybody agrees that we could use a few more of those, or at least some kind of solution there. So if we could price them out, or, yeah, I don't know if we thought about, I'm checking my notes here to see if Phil has figured out if they're going to be permanent things or move aroundable things, or, I don't know, see how far 75 can go, I
think we were
guess.
thinking permanent.
Yeah.
Weren't they talking about near the fire station?
Yeah, we were hoping at least
Or
two.
Yeah.
Well, I know that the school committee and the superintendent of the schools had discussed doing one up on West Boylston Street. So if this is something that the school is looking to move forward with in on the town side, then I would think we would look to try to collaborate and see if there's any savings on purchasing, at least coordinate the purchases to make sure that, we're, because if we're looking to get two and they're doing one up there, like, could we get away with having one, or, that fire station corner is becoming a little bit congested with the signage as it is.
Yeah, that's what my memory served, I could be driving.
But if that's where the traffic flow is, then,
I think that area, Phil has said is the most highly trafficked
Yeah.
road or patch of road in Clinton, but
all right, so we want to,
wait till the experts weigh in.
would we like to put that on the agenda for next week?
Sure, or at least, get some sharper numbers.
All right, so so I know Mr. Deval had talked about the proposed allocated funding for business recovery. So where the downtown coordinator position is using approximately $260,000 less than what was originally proposed. Is there any thoughts on just reallocating that remaining proposed funding to that business recovery grant program.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if we need to allocate it right yet, but I would recommend leaving it. So right now, I think there's about 500,000 total unallocated, if you include what was left over, plus the difference in the salary, from going from 4 years down to 1 year on the downtown coordinator.
Sure.
So my thought is I would leave that unallocated until we get feedback from the application process that Mr. Duffy is, and I actually think we should probably ask for an update from him for the next meeting, because I think we were due an update either the end of May or beginning of June on where he was at with we did work with the Clinton and Worcester Chamber of Commerce on a plan, on like a business outreach to educate the businesses on what they might be available for, to apply for. So I would just recommend that, so there's 150 in there right now for business recovery. I would just recommend that we leave that the remaining money, it's unallocated now. I would just leave it unallocated until that initiative has run its course and we get a feedback. And then if there's a greater need, then the 150 that's allocated will have money available to do so. But I don't think we have to allocate it now, as long as we just don't allocate it for anything else until we hear back from the business community on what the need's gonna be. Then we can make a decision.
That sound like a plan? Sure. All right. All right, well, Chief Coyne had just come in. Would like to come up for the Police Department Communications.
Thank you. Good evening. Since we met, I did talk about, I reached out to the longtime radio provider who provides the service and all of our radio sales and maintenance and everything, Worcester Radio, WORAD, who for 30 plus years has done all the maintenance and equipment, and also has worked with the fire department with their radio upgrade 8 or 9 years ago. But I've also reached out since that point. I have an estimate from them, and they do a Motorola product. Motorola is a great radio. They're top of the line. It's a multi-band radio, and I talked about the interoperability, about communicating with other departments, with the Mass State Police, with even federal agencies or anything in any type of emergency, natural disaster. We had something at the schools, doesn't come under the ARPA. It isn't a pandemic, but we had an incident at the schools, or a swatting incident a month or so ago, and we had multiple agencies coming into town to assist us, and communication was one of the issues in some of the after reports that we had. We weren't able to communicate directly with the state police, with the other towns and communities that wanted to provide help, asking for help. They would go through the dispatch center. So I identified this early on, years ago, even before Chief, and I've got a great response from the officers. It's definitely an upgrade that we need to do. And I think it's clearly stated in the ARPA funds that under the response to the public health emergency operations centers, emergency response equipment, e.g. emergency response radio systems, it definitely comes under the ARPA funds. But in that time, since I talked to you last, I've reached out to 3 other vendors, Cybercom, who they do radio products through Motorola too. And he basically told us we would have to change vendors, he would have to come out and do, but the pricing would be the same. All the pricing for all the radio products, the Motorola, Kenwood, L3 Harris, any of the devices we use are all under state contract pricing. So anybody that sells us a Motorola product is going to be the same price. What we would have to look at is if we want to go away from WORAD to do our servicing. If we go to another radio system, Kenwood, reached out to Beltronics. He gave us Kenwood radio, which is a top of the line, very good radio. He gave it to us for 3 weeks we've had it. And I've asked officers on the night shift to go all over the place. We've had them on the afternoon shift. We've called Sterling. We've called the Neshoba Regional Dispatch Center towns, Bolton, Berlin, and Lancaster, in crystal clear radio. We've call the other ones that aren't in, Sterling is not in, they have their own radio system, the same thing. We've had to check out in some of the low areas that we've had with still some issues, Green Street, things. Wherever you sell your phone is communication issues with the radio. I've been in contact with the, actually Mr. McGrail has reached out and been a huge help to me with reaching out to the hospital, and we're working with the hospital to get some equipment up there going off of the ARPA funds. But we're really have some dead spots in the ER in our offices, and we have some safety issues up there when they're there. And at our meeting the other day, last week, with the building commission and the architects, I guess, building the new middle school, one of my things is we need communication. One of the things for safety, I know there's all kinds of devices, but we can't skip, but if they build a new building or renovate the old building, then we need communication. The officers need to be able to use their radios and communicate inside those buildings for any type of emergencies. So I'm gonna stay with that when that's going, because like I said, I know things get cut at the end, or we use too much money here, so we don't have enough money here, but I wanna make sure I stay on that. That's one of my big things, to make sure we have communication. But going back to where we're at, sorry. Cybercom, they do Motorola. They didn't offer us much more, except we would have to change. And all these different vendors, Boylston uses Cybercom. I've reached out to different chiefs in the area. Berlin uses Beltronics. That's who we're testing the Kenwood systems out with right now. They do all that service. We had modular communication come in our building a couple weeks back. They're doing a lot of the communication for the new Leominster Police Department over there, the new building they're putting in. And they provide L3 Harris, which I haven't tested out. It's communication radios that the military uses in the federal government, and they also offer Kenwood products. So Kenwood is a better price. I'm looking into that more. I have a meeting set up. He was supposed to get back to me this week, come out and get the radio. He comes into town. He also does work at Jabal down there. He does the communication with the radios. So he dropped off a radio a few weeks back. He was going back and forth with emails about coming and pick it up, and I asked if we could have a sit-down meeting and really go over some stuff. And modular communications really went over. They went up to Park Street, looked at our antennas. They looked at the antennas outside. They were in our dispatch center, and they're in the middle of an assessment. They gave us some things right off the bat that they think we need to repair or do. And I'm in kind of the crossroads whether we go WORAD and have them fix all these things that they pointed out that we know. I like WORAD, and I won't badmouth them. I don't know if they're as progressive. They kind of wait till we call them that something's wrong. You know, they're kind of mom and pop. They're really good. They're reliable, and like I said before, they do know the town. So there's something that we have to make a decision about. Do we go away from WORAD? Do we stay with WORAD, Motorola, the known product? Do we go with the Kenwood? We'll save a little bit of money, but we also have to have Beltronics or Modular, one of these companies come in and give us a full evaluation, because that would mean WORAD doesn't service or maintain or anything except Motorola. So that would mean us switching a whole different vendor, something we haven't done in years and years that I know going back. But we're willing to do that. If it's a better product, better price, it's going to do what we need to do. It's going to grow with us, and all these radios are going to grow. They all have things in place that are coming online into the future. And what we would do too with the multi-band, if we were ever to switch, not saying we are, but if we were ever to go to a regional center with a different radio system, these radios are going to be operable in those regional centers. And the other thing is switching over to the radios. We're not doing any infrastructure upgrades. We're going to do radios. They're expensive radios, the handheld, the portables, and the mobile cruiser units. But they're 3 bands. We'll be able to talk to anybody out there. They can program anybody we want, any type of state police unit that we want, any local department, anywhere that we want. You don't want too many on there, because then you're flipping and you're hearing everybody. But what these radios can do is going to meet our needs and beyond. They're going to grow with us. And I think this is a good opportunity to use some of these ARPA funds for that. What I'd say is, the quote that I gave, I reached out to WORAD a couple weeks ago to see if he updated it. That quote ended last October. The prices will go up a little bit, but there's also some things I had Matt on there that I wasn't sure if we're going to need, so I need another conversation with him. I don't think I'm going to go over that. The quote was $357,225, and that included 32 portable radios. That gives us 3 extra. it included 9 mobile units in the cruisers, and that gives us some wiggle room there too. So if the costs do go over significantly because the prices have gone up in the last 6 months, I could take it out on maybe a couple extra, maybe having 1 radio or doing some other things. So I could keep it in that ballpark. That doesn't include installation of some of the radios for the cruisers. But if we go to Kenwood, I know there was talk here, I want to ask the board, there was talk where if you allocate certain funds, if you guys support this and you do think it's something that we do need or that we want going forward, if there is money left, I'm not going to go over this, if there's money left, I could put it back into the funds.
Into what funds?
Back into the ARPA funds?
Oh,
Put it back
Maybe
into
any
the
any of
pool,
these
sure.
zonies, yeah. Because I know it's a significant amount, and I'm not looking to take all the ARPA funds, and I'm not looking to take them. I'm just looking for something that I think will be a huge benefit to the town. It'll definitely be a benefit to the officers. I think it's right in line with what the ARPA funds are out there for. I think it's going to meet any pandemic type of natural disaster, any school, any major critical incident. I think it's going to meet our needs and keep officer safety, and I think it's going to help save lives if it comes to that. We all hope there's never those incidents, but it's going to really allow our officers to speak to neighboring towns, to state police, to anybody responding to the fire department, to other area fire departments. It's really going to allow us to do a lot. Dan, our head dispatcher over there, he's doing a good job. He's getting some funds through 911 to do some upgrades on the communication equipment inside the dispatch center, which is great. And this goes along with what we're doing here. And after 9/11, I spoke about this a little bit. The federal government and all the studies show that one of the huge things was communication and interoperability, where different departments, even within the city, couldn't communicate with each other. So back in the day, at Kenwood, even on the same frequency, couldn't communicate with the Motorola. So they got rid of all that. So any product we buy, they work with each other. We could have Motorola's in the car, and Kenwood's in the portables. We could have I don't like to do that. You want one of the reasons behind this, you want them familiar with the radio. So when there's a critical incident, the radio they use and they swap out or something. So I'm just saying that they all operate together. The federal government made sure of that after some of the major incidents in the country over the last few years, and they're still identifying. You see some of these major issues and some of these things in other communities and other states. And one of the things in the post briefings is always communication. These other area departments are coming in, they can't communicate with them. I think this is going to erase all that with us. We'll be on the cutting edge here in Clinton, what we're doing with the radio system, the type of communication we have. If we do go to a different band, we change, we go to regional, we go to this or that. These radios are going to do it without any infrastructure change or anything else. So that's major cost. We're not putting up new towers or anything. And the radios are expensive, but not as expensive as if we did a whole major changeover. So I'd be asking for a little more than that to cover some cost of installation too. But that's the number, and that's the top of it. I'm going to still sit down with Beltronics, and I want to talk to Modular a little more, and even Woolred. Circle back. I've had a couple of great conversations with them. Cybercom, I think, is kind of out. They offer a lot of what Woolred offers. Some of the service might be a little better. But
So the 370,000 that you had requested,
yeah,
you're also saying that there's going to be installation costs
some
up and above
the
the 370?
Well,
Yep.
the cost is $357,225, $358, and I think there will be a little bit the cruiser installation. The other portable radios, when they come in, they'll be pre-programmed, they'll be ready to go. They'll have the officer's number, he hits a switch or she hits a switch, and there's an emergency that goes right to the dispatch center. So those will be ready to go. They'll put them right on their belt and be off. There'll be some little bit of work to do with the installation, switching over all the cruisers to update.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Oh,
Mr. Chair, I was just, is this a good number, 370? $370,000, that's good?
I think that'll do it, yep,
Okay.
yes.
well, what I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, is that if you think you're going to go over it, obviously, all of the money wouldn't be expended by the time you get everything in to the department, so he could always come back, and if you have to add a little bit to that request, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, either way, or just bring back the change. I mean,
If there's some cost overages or there's delays in getting some of the equipment, like I said, I think things are moving along. The last time I talked about supply chain issues and some of the issues we had with getting some of the current radios we had, they were 6 months and some of them were a year out. But I think those supply chain issues are moving along now. Things are getting a lot better.
would 375 make you feel better?
375 we're doing. Like I
Okay.
said, I'm not looking, if there is extra money.
Yeah, just bring back the change.
I'll make you aware.
I tell my kids when we go to coffee lands.
375 will
Get
do
you
it.
over the
Sure.
finish line.
Mr. Chair, I move that we authorize $375,000 out of the American Rescue Plan. What's the other? American Rescue Plan, what's the A? Act. American Rescue Plan Act, for an upgrade of Clinton Police radio systems.
I'll second that, but I would also add that if he needs to come back to
Of course. Yep.
to
Sorry.
us in the future, that we would be open to.
I appreciate that. And when I do, and I was waiting, I have all these proposals until I have the support, I'll really dive in and I'll get this going in the next few weeks now. And we'll have a good radio system, and I'll give you guys a heads up with where we're at, and what product and what vendor and where we're headed.
Perfect. All right, so there's a second on the table. Any discussion or questions? Thank you for doing the research on this, and you know, with emergency services, you know, time is essential on every side, so this would be great if this applies that.
I think and people say, not to keep going, but I think it's the most important tool we have on our belt. Everything we carry, I really do. The radio and communication, letting officers know, is the most important tool we have.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just one question? Will the fire department have to eventually make this upgrade, or
No.
they're good?
They did an upgrade to the high band. No, they're good where they're at. And this is the beauty of this. We'll be able, like I said, they have a dual band. This will be a tri-band. They have a multi-band, but it's a dual band, but only their captains carry it. So
Okay.
they can talk directly with the police. But the firefighters on scene can't. That all goes through the dispatch center. So now we'll be able to listen and contact and communicate directly.
Right,
with them.
yeah, because I remember that being an issue a couple of years ago with the incident where they weren't able to communicate.
One of the things, if we did go to an upgrade with them, and we had a long talk with WORAD, some of the high band, the frequencies and they're all gone. You have to share, you have to put a letter in with the FCC. Some people are waiting for up to 2 years to get it. They told a story about, I think it was like Holden and Paxton Fire was asking Rentham or a department down the other side of the state to borrow their frequency to get their radios operable. And I talked about this last time, WORAD, who's been doing our system forever, they think the low band that we're on as a police department with our community, with the hills and everything, they think that's the best system that we have in place. And our officers, we have the usual complaints of the dead spots and all that, but our officers' complaints are more when someone's coming into town and there's an incident, we don't have that communication with our departments. But this will alleviate that.
Very good. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate the support, thank you very much.
Mr. Duffy, if you'd like to come up for discussion to allocate funds for Strand Theater renovations.
You want me to
Sure.
start off? Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just asking Phil to be the first of the people to sit at the table for this initiative. Just in case there's any questions, Phil is the guy with the answers. I've been working with Phil on this initiative for probably a year and a half, going on 2 years. So I feel like we have a proposal, and I'm a big proponent of it. Going to be a couple other people here. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to speak in favor of it. But just to start, I just wanted to go over, I gave some of you a short little handout. So I just wanted to go over the bullet points of the proposal. And if anyone has any specific questions about the proposal between myself and our Director of Economic Development, Phil Duffy, I think we can get those questions answered. So the proposal that we're bringing to the board today is for $300,000 to be allocated, to be spent for future Strand renovations. The theater is in really tough shape, and the last couple of years, specifically due to COVID and no revenue coming in. There's a number of repairs that really make the business very difficult to find new ownership for right now. So we're hoping, since the theater and the building owned by Mr. Barrett was so negatively impacted from COVID, movie theaters were significantly impacted, that we think it's an appropriate use of these funds, not just because of the specific business, because of the historical significance of that movie theater, because it's the central point of our downtown. In its current state, was a great foot traffic generator for the other businesses down there. We're hoping with some of these renovations that it can become more of a multi-venue entertainment hub. So instead of just movies, the potential to have live acts, live musical acts and entertainment. So, you know, we're hoping that this movie could, we're hoping that this money that would be going towards this endeavor would really revitalize that part of town, because I don't think any, you know, we just invested, you know, $4.5 million in a downtown renovation that mostly has been very successful. A lot of people are happy with it, and it's a shame right now that in the center of it we have a boarded up movie theater. So if we can do something with some of this this COVID relief money to assist in getting a new ownership group in there so that we can enjoy the Strand for the next generation, I think that it would be well worth our time. So before we turn to Mr. Duffy for any questions anyone has, I just want to really briefly go over this. So the proposal is $300,000 to be allocated to be spent for future Strand renovations. The plan would be, the money would just be allocated with this vote. We would then form a subcommittee that would be formed to oversee the release of the funds. The funds would only be able to be released through one of two criteria. The first being a match, meaning that the building owner or the new potential business owner will have to demonstrate that they're going to invest an equal amount of money. So if they're requesting $100,000, they have to demonstrate to us that they're investing $100,000. So that's to make sure that the risk of the business venture is is spread equally. The other option, the less preferred one, but still an option to have some flexibility, would be the funds may be able to be released in the form of a zero interest loan. But because this is the less preferred option, I'm recommending that we cap that zero interest loan at $100,000. The subcommittee's job moving forward will be to ensure that one of the two major criteria are being fulfilled, and also to ensure that any projects that the money will be going to for the renovations will be a permanent part of the Strand building and will be used towards the functioning of the space as a movie theater / live entertainment venue, and just ensure that any of the funds that we spend can't go towards anything that could be repurposed or removed from the building for a different business venture. The subcommittee will also work with the current building owner and town council on terms of a callback on the funds in the unlikely event that the building would get sold in the next 10 years. And the last portion of this is that we are only going to have 1 year to take advantage of this money, because in June of 2024, Phil, is that one? Yes. Okay, so in June of 2024, that's the deadline for spending the money. So if shortly before that, if in May, we...
Mr. Chair, just to be clear, I don't think that's true.
Oh.
Allocation, not spending, I think it's 26.
Yeah, December 24 to make a commitment to spend, and then by 2026, it has to all be spent and closed out.
Oh, okay, so December of 2024 is when it has to be allocated?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, yeah.
Okay, all right, so we have a year and a half instead of a year, so that's even better. Thank you.
Didn't you say that by 24 committed, and then by 26 allocated?
It has to be spent and then closed out, the paperwork closed out with the federal government by 2026.
Thank you for the correction.
Are we going to advertise for people to serve on this subcommittee?
Yes, absolutely. So, thank you with that correction. So that's the last. So the point being, we only have now roughly a year and a half to work with the building owner and find either the resources would have to come from the building owner or from a new business owner that would be willing to invest the money to match it, to take it out. But we're only gonna have a year and a half to be able to use this money for that initiative. And if it's not used by that time, we're gonna have to reallocate it to something else so we don't lose it. So that's the outline of the plan. I just wanted to, I asked Mr. Duffy just to be available in case, I wanted him to be available first, just in case there were any questions for any board members that they would like to have answered. And then after Mr. Duffy, I have the building owner, Justin Barrett, is here. He would just like to speak to the board for a quick second. And then we also have Lauren Nanoff and Dave Sullivan from the Clinton and Worcester Chamber of Commerce, and they would like to just address the board for a quick minute. So, with that, I'll just kind of hand it over to Phil if anyone has any questions about the proposal.
Mr. Chair, we did an assessment of this property, I think in April. We got a report back. Do you remember the recommendations?
The assessment looked at 3 possible redevelopment scenarios, basically do a little, do a medium amount, or do a lot. The do a medium, which was the recommended, estimated cost could be between $1 and $2 million. But to put those numbers into context, those are really more magnitude of scope numbers rather than real numbers. It wasn't a it wasn't an assessment of the facility. It was a market assessment. So it was looking more at market factors rather than facility factors in understanding the viability of the idea of the Strand as a multi-use venue, which is to say that that number comes from the consultant's experience, but not from his expertise. Okay. If you understand the distinction I'm making.
Do you still have, I've never seen that. Do you
Oh,
have those?
I'll be happy to print you off a copy.
Yeah, if I could, I'd like to see
I'd
those.
also like one, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just going forward on that, because it was eye-opening. The other step was to form a nonprofit to help raise more money for this?
Yeah, that was one, that is the more typical revitalization strategy for these kinds of facilities. But quite frankly, this is not like many other facilities, like in our region, the Hanover Theater or the theater block in Fitchburg. This is not a derelict property. This has not been vacant for decades. This is a facility where they've switched off the lights and closed the doors about 17 months ago at this point. So it is a different kind of facility. I think our hope has been from the beginning is to assist in the transfer of business from one private owner to another private owner, rather than going through the lengthy and arduous process of forming a nonprofit. The consultant certainly recommended if we were to go the whole schmear, the $10 to $12 million project, then that would be the route. But on the lesser route, if I recall, he projected, his projection was that this kind of facility could probably cover 80 to 90% of its expenses, but down the road might have to consider forming a nonprofit. That said, I contextualize that. If the cost in is low enough, then your carrying cost, what the nut you have to make every month is somewhat predicated on your expenses in. If those are kept low, then maybe that 80 to 90 becomes 90 to 100. I don't know.
Building off, I'm sorry, Joe. Building off how it's a different kind of space, how hopeful it be, because it's part of a bigger building, and so an outside developer wouldn't own it. They'd be putting money into a place they didn't own. How hopeful are you that even with this projected 600,000, we could get to $1 million or $2 million, get someone from outside to invest that kind of money into a place like this that they can't keep?
I really can't hazard a guess. People come in, because it's a unique property. As we all know, there was a lot of expressions of interest just after it closed. But how many of them are in earnest? A few of them shook down, and they looked very promising, but there was the impediment of ownership of the building, the consideration of the ownership of the building. To be honest, I think it's fallen off people's radar, having been closed now. It's not in people's minds. So, we're still getting people kicking the tires, and, at least one of them seems like a very interesting possibility. But I haven't had any discussions about people's comfort level in investing. I guess that goes into the lease and the tenant holdings and other kinds of factors, or the elements of an agreement with the property owner.
That's all for now.
Mr. Chairman, so one of the issues that I that was brought up the day that we all walked when we started with the Russian icon, was that Bill, the previous owner, had spoken to the fact that being able to secure movies was almost impossible because of the way the criteria is set up now. So if the people who potentially are looking at that, how are they going to be able to manage this from
Well, I
that
can't
standpoint?
speak with any specific knowledge of the movie distribution field. I do know that it has changed, that not only out of COVID, but also out of kind of reorganization of the movie studios, the distribution model is on its ear. It's not what it was before, which is why, in fact, we were so interested in looking at it as a multi-use venue. Having spoken with the consultant, but also with someone who recently approached the town, I believe the owner, about the property, who has 22 years experience with a similar facility. Movies are okay, but the money's in the music.
Oh, no, because I know the previous owners were doing comedy nights
Yeah.
and things of that nature. They were trying to diversify and put other venues in there,
Yeah.
you know?
And they were somewhat limited by the facility, but I think that's one of the reasons we want to look at the viability of a multi-use venue. We want to see that if you built it, do we have any idea whether they would come or not? The assessment is, I think is, I don't know if you read it, Sean, if you read it, Ed, I would say guardedly to slightly more than guardedly optimistic about the idea of a multi-use venue in this location, given the competing facilities, given its location. I think there was some concern expressed about the kind of the paucity of nonprofit cultural organizations in the region. But again, to contextualize that, that's what this particular consultant deals with all the time.
It shifted gears dramatically. Like, it seemed like they were building up evidence that it's not going to work, but then in the conclusion, it was like, oh yeah, it should work pretty well.
Yeah.
So
Pretty
I
much.
was a little surprised by that. But
Guardedly, if not slightly more than guardedly optimistic. Fair way to characterize it?
which I am too. So
So yes, which is say, Mary Rose, that movies have changed, but I think part of the impetus of looking to stimulate investment in this is with an understanding that the venue will need to be something different in order to be on the soundest financial and operating basis, soundest operating basis, not financial. And the question before you is whether supplemental funds from ARPA can enable that. If so, how are we going to understand whether that enables it? You know, it needs to be timely, and it needs to be enough, but more to the point, whoever's on the other side of this agreement has to have enough to cover everything else. We need to have safeguards in place, and we need to have a timeline so that if a market doesn't materialize and the opportunity to test whether these funds are sufficient or not doesn't arise, that the community has the opportunity to take it off the table and reprogram it before the ARPA deadline. So, the only other thing I would say relative to ARPA is based on my reading of the guidance, the only person to whom these funds could be extended would be the property owner. Any subsequent owner of the business would not be in a party that was affected by COVID. And to what Ed's point was, just as the legislative earmark that was secured for the Strand was for the revitalization of the Strand Theater, the funds would have to be, I think we'd have to see demonstration that the funds are being used, you know, in a pointed and specific way to revitalize the theater. That would not be a common repair, but a specific modification. As to what that would be, I would recommend that we leave it to a potential user to tell us how they propose, or tell Mr. Barrett how they propose to modify the facility, and kind of, you know, let that, rather than say, well, we need new chairs, we need new kitchen, we need new bathrooms. We don't know that because we don't have an idea of how it's going to be operated. Let the person who may operate it work with the owner to kind of devise that roster of modifications and cost estimates.
Could I ask Mr. Barron a question?
Sure.
So why don't we wait to get, you want to bring up Mr. Barrett now?
I think it'd be appropriate to bring up Justin now, just to talk to the board.
If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Justin Barrett. I'm the property owner for the building that includes the Strand. Thank you all very much for your time and consideration. So I stopped collecting rent on, or I started charging rent on the Strand in January of 2022. And up until that point, I was owed about 18 months of rent. So at this point, I haven't collected rent for about 3 years. So it's over $100,000 in uncollected rent. I'm very interested in maintaining the Strand and preserving its historical significance. I think it's kind of one of the keystones of the newly revitalized part of downtown. And I think it kind of has to be a multi-use venue. And as it stands right now, I'm not sure that it could be on its own transformed into a multi-use venue. So, yeah,
Could I just, when you say multi-use, like
Yeah.
what ideas? I mean, off the top of your head. I mean,
so there's been interest from a gentleman who runs several comedy clubs in Boston. He's come out and visited the space. He's expressed strong interest. It's about 300 seats with good acoustics for comedy. I've heard that, I forget the name of the bar that has concerts sometimes. Simple Man has some bands that they can't accommodate in their space, and the Strand could be a good, viable alternative for that. Maybe events of just watching sporting events there, bringing the community together, and theatrical performances like plays, things that, you know, Rob and Bill were doing before. And there's probably other uses that I'm not sure of. I think, as kind of what Mr. Duffy was saying, the subject matter expert that takes over the Strand would be best suited to fill the whole suite of options, but those could be some.
Mr. Chair, just so, and Justin, you can attest this, so can Phil. One of the things I was blown away by when I visited the Strand was, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but the behind the movie theater screen is actually like an old-fashioned stage that goes back like another like 20 feet or so, maybe even more. So I mean, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on like the specifics of what a new business owner would like to do, but there's absolutely the potential with any kind of a retractable screen that you could have not just that, you know, that the stage that's currently there in front of the screen is probably comparable to what's at the Simple Man right now, maybe a little bit bigger, and they seem that they have pretty good musical acts there, so we could probably still get by with using that. But if there was ever a reasonable investment to make the behind the screen usable for concerts and for plays and for stand-up comedy, I mean, it could really be like a entertainment hub of the area. You could really have a lot of like interesting acts and entertainment options at that space.
Mr. Chair. Twofold question. How much do you think it would take to get to this multi-purpose venue situation? And beyond that, how bad a shape is the building in?
I think there's a couple big ticket items to get it to the multi-use venue. I think the feasibility study highlighted the need for an expanded stage. So that's one of the big items.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
The feasibility study highlighted the need for a larger stage to really transform it into a multi-use venue. I think there's an opportunity to kind of convert the kitchen area into more of a standing room that facilitates other things that would make use of kind of a standing room. The chairs are fairly aged. I think, you know, customers are expecting more of a like recliner when they go to these types of venues now. I don't know that that's critical, but I think it would go a long way. Someone could easily spend $1.5 million. I think bare minimum, 600 to 750 at a minimum. And that's just kind of the basics. You know, there's a whole upper deck that's really cool. Can't be used right now, but after consulting with structural engineers and all the experts, that could be another unlock for the space that would add capacity. Taking the screen back would also do a lot. But again, you know, we haven't done a formal RFP for all the work, so I'm just kind of ballparking.
Sure. And the building, like the roof and other things?
The building's in fairly good condition. I mean, its bones are great. You know, there's metal beams that span the whole width of the theater.
The theater has a new roof.
Yeah, that's been fixed, yes. So I think there's some cosmetic things that would help. But as far as the structural integrity and sustainability of building, I think it's in pretty good shape.
But you couldn't use the upstairs to put a sprinkler system in, correct?
Oh, the building is pretty.
The sprinkler system up on where the second floor is?
Yep.
You'd have to have the sprinkler system installed, right, to be able to occupy that?
No, it has a sprinkler system.
It does?
If you recall, I accidentally I had an office in that building and I accidentally sent it on fire 20-some odd years ago.
Who did? Phil did.
It was me.
You? Oh, okay.
So, yes,
Okay.
yes.
My understanding was there wasn't a sprinkler system. Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, it's
Okay. So it's just the structure up there? It's not the fact that there isn't sprinkler system then?
There's no elevator, so to be
So it's
compliant with the current rules
handicap
and
accessible,
regulations, I
yeah.
think there
Yeah.
would need to be some more accessibility. I mean, we walk up there
Yeah,
to
to be honest,
take a look.
honestly, if you're asking why the upstairs isn't used, and forgive me for interjecting, I think it's
Please.
just a mismatch between what the space is and what the market is. It's all small offices, it's all walk-up offices, which were rented like hotcakes in the 1920s. I understand there were barber shops up there and tailors and insurance people, and that stuff doesn't exist on second floors anymore, so it's just waiting for something else.
Mr. Chair, yeah, and so I think the point of this is just like, you know, what can we do to help? I don't think anybody has the appetite to use the ARPA funds to cover the cost of a soup to nuts like renovation of the Strand. But with this $300,000 available with a match to a potential new business owner or potential investment, you know, could that just be the extra push, the extra incentive to get some interest, to help get a new motivated ownership group in there, and still within, I know it's a fraction of the amount if we wanted to totally redo the theater, but within that money, because we did have some budgetary quotes for some renovations just to get an idea, but I do think within, if someone was able to match this money, within that would be the ability to have an expanded stage and some additional stage lighting. So I think that we would be able to get it a portion of the way there to have it be a much more, give it a much better chance of success with the two options of, well, three options really, of live music, stand-up comedy, movies, and then hopefully, if depending on how much the stage can be renovated, maybe live plays would be like another option for somebody. So it's this. I mean, the point of this initiative is really just to help the building owner who's gone through some tough times due to COVID, and just give him a little, you know, like a bullet in his chamber, a weapon in his arsenal to help him over the next year and a half go out and try to find a partner that can invest in the Strand and reopen it. And I just think it's just an extra little incentive for somebody that maybe if they were, you know, unsure 50-50, but then they see this kind of commitment from the town and the opportunity to have some of the costs offset, you know, maybe it just pushes them over that line. I think that's kind of the intent of this initiative.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So, that leads into my next question. So is this subcommittee or the owner going to be chasing down a partner? And how are we gonna try and find them in a year and a half?
That question directed towards me?
Anybody?
The subcommittee is certainly going to help the building owner try to find, as well as with support from the Clinton and Worcester Chamber of Commerce, to use their contacts and their resources to try to find a suitable partnership for this initiative. So yeah, the subcommittee would be involved only as a supportive measure for the building owner to try to find a new ownership group. You know, earlier last year, we did have a Strand committee that was formed that had a couple past business owners of the Strand that have some experience, a couple other members of the community that had some varying degrees of experience with kind of like running venues like that. The Worcester Chamber of Commerce has been a great resource so far with trying to put us in touch with a couple. There were a couple contacts that had been involved in large renovations like the Hanover Theater. So, you know, the hope is, yeah, that the subcommittee would work with the building owner to try to help him to find an ownership group that would be supportive of the project and be able to invest in the Strand.
Thank you. One last from you, Mr. Chair. Who authorizes spending? Is that the subcommittee or this board?
I would think that the subcommittee would, I mean, usually works, I believe, subcommittees make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, right? So even like the traffic subcommittee, they make a decision, but then ultimately it comes to the Board of Selectmen for final approval. So I wouldn't see why that would be any different. I would want to operate the way every other subcommittee would operate.
Mr. Duffy.
I agree with that it would be a recommendation to the board who would ultimately approve. But if I can just elaborate on the prior question, and just to go back to discussions that we've had commonly together, if we're going to make these public funds available, even if it is directed towards the building owner, it's with an understanding that we're trying to affect an economic development goal, that if we're making this amount of money available, we should work with the owner and develop something equivalent to an RFP. We should advertise the availability of these funds so that even as their director, as owner, the owner will be working in tandem with the prospective business owner, and the public should be aware of the availability of these funds to partially assist in the redevelopment of the Strand. That would be my recommendation. We might want to have a conversation with Bob Gibbons to understand how we would do that. Because ARPA money is just a little different than any other money we saw in terms of the quasi-public uses that you can put it to, it can be used for. So, and I think we kind of had that discussion that basically whoever leases the Strand would be entering into a contract with the owner, and it's not our place to be, entangled in any contract like that, but if we're going to make these funds available, I think we need to be sure that we've satisfied our public interest prior to putting that money into that agreement. So, and we talked about that.
There was 100,000 allocated from the state as well, is that correct?
Yeah, Phil can speak to this more. I think that there's 100,000 allocated from the state currently, as well as 75,000 for the marquee.
We have verbally committed, not actually committed by vote, to the using the sign and facade program to do the marquee of the Strand. Whether that fund comes from the Community Development Fund or ARPA funds, to be honest, when I put in a $100,000 request for sign and facade improvements in the ARPA subcommittee recommendations, it was with the idea of capturing that. That actually came out prior to the demise of the Strand. That came out during the local rapid recovery plan process. It was identified. Now that everything on High Street looks pretty, that looks junky. Back when everything looked junky, who cares?
So you had potentially 100,000 for the facade?
70 was the number that was kind of the estimate I received from the
70, and then there was 100
from the state.
From the state.
As far as I know, that is doesn't have any strings attached to it unless I.
It says, for the revitalization of the Strand, so we secure the funds, but it flows through the town.
Okay, so would the expectation be that that would be kind of included in this, you know, if we did get this 300,000 approved, would that 100,000, you think that would like go into like one pot, would be 400,000 that we would be working with, or would it, the 100,000 just go to the building owner from the state without us getting in the middle of it?
No, it doesn't go to the building owner from the state. It
Okay.
goes from the state to the town.
Okay,
And
all
then
right.
to the town.
So if an interested party brought forth up to $300,000 potentially, they would have access to $470,000 from between the state and the town. Is that an accurate number? 700, half of that 1.5 million that feasibility study had kind of projected at that medium.
Whatever, depending on the amount that the board, if it looks favorably on this proposal, whatever the amount, however you decide to structure that.
Under the way
Under
that this
criteria
proposal is
one.
laid out, yes. Yep.
So to speak, the Strand marquee is almost like the Citgo sign. I mean, it's value, we decided on, we made a verbal commitment, I should say, to addressing that, not because of the Strand Theater per se, but because of its visual impact on that block of High Street.
If there are no other questions, then I would like to just invite Lauren and David up from the Clinton and Worcester Chamber of Commerce. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much. If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Lauren Prosmaninoff.
David Sullivan.
You know, I had 2 pages written out, but I think we all love the Strand, and we all want to see it come back to life. I just want to speak on behalf of the chamber to let you guys know that we back this 100%. And we visited the Strand a few weeks ago to talk further about this plan and bring ideas forward. And they can go as far as we can span, but right now we really just need to focus on putting the right person in the right seats. And, you know, strategically planning the subcommittee so that we have the right people. Before, like Ed said, there was a subcommittee developed, and it seemed like it went around with failed business opportunities as a movie theater. I think we need to move forward. Right now is the time to pitch it. It's the Strand Theater, and move forward in the future and stop looking towards it being a failed business. In the past, when people would come to see the Strand and look at it as a future buyer or tenant, it was the past business owners who are leading the tours. I think it's time for that subcommittee, maybe it's the chair that steps up and really acts as a salesperson here. A few weeks ago, we visited the Strand, and it's in disrepair. It needs help, and to be quite frank, we're gonna lose it if it keeps sitting there any longer. Every day that it sits there, every rainstorm that it comes, I mean, I can see the sky when you go into the theater and
Hang on,
look up.
Mr. Chair, I thought they said the roof was fixed.
Recently.
It needs help. The ceiling
Which one,
needs
where
help.
is it? Which one is it? Is the roof fixed or not?
The roof is fixed, the drywall hasn't been replaced, but there's no more water entering the theater.
I'm getting conflicting reports. She can see the sky.
Either way, it needs help, and it needs money to
Well,
fix it.
Well, let's hold
I
on
don't
a
think
second.
we're
kind
we're
of a
not
big
having a
deal if the
discussion to
roof isn't
allocate the
there.
money
Give
for
me-
the roof, for the kitchen,
Give us
for the
one second
seats.
here, please, if we could.
Yeah, just, I mean, the work that was done recently, so it's perfectly possible that the last time Lauren was there, she could have
I'm
seen
going
it.
to make a conjecture. Over the stage,
Yes.
there is, as there is in this building, there's a large glazed ventilating hood, evacuated air, prior to air conditioning, and it has a glazed roof, meaning glass. It's like a little greenhouse on the roof. We have one on top of Town Hall. If there was any conjecture that we've seen the day, it seemed like the day, might be coming through the louvers of that ventilating house. But My understanding is, I mean, I know the roof over the auditorium is broken. And I understand the roof over the stage, there've been repairs made.
Well, just for ha-has, what would it cost to fix the rain from coming in?
The roof was 40,000, and then there was another 15,000 of gutter added and stucco work done.
But the glass part, like, we don't want rain coming in.
No. There's maybe like 1-inch slivers on top of a gable. That's been there, and that's never been a source of water. It's more of a source for ventilation back when the heating system was whatever it was, and air would funnel through there. But it's not a penetration that allows water to come through.
Okay.
And I'm sure Mr. Barrett could give you a tour.
No, that's fine, we heard the roof was fine, and then she's seen this guy, so, and that was like a week or two ago.
No, she's a few
I think it was a
weeks.
month ago, but maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
the repairs that.
We'll check the tape.
I can look at the date.
That's okay, I just wanna make sure if we're just putting money in to fix seats and it's gonna get rain on it, I
But
don't think that's, nobody
every
wants that.
dollar that they're gonna propose to fix something, it's gonna be met, so we're not talking about specific fixes right now. I'm just stating behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, we're gonna back the efforts to form a strategic subcommittee and get these efforts done. That it's not just giving money to someone to do whatever, knock it out, and then have no strand at all.
Yeah, and the repairs to the roof, that's something that just happened recently, right? I mean, it's not like the roof got repaired a year and a half ago. The roof got repaired like a matter of weeks ago, correct?
That's right.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So it's perfectly possible that Lauren is remembering something from like a couple months ago when she was there, because she's been there on a couple different
It was
occasions, so,
April school vacation, we were there, I believe.
okay,
So it wasn't a few weeks ago, it was probably a month and a few weeks ago.
okay.
That's, all right, I lost my train of thought
That's
here,
all right, you
but,
Get it back, you can get it back, no
Well,
rush.
I can add in the meantime while you find what else you wanted to add, Lauren, but, so I'm our Director of Economic Development and Business Recruitment at the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm also helping Lauren out here in Clinton. I'm on part of our Clinton Area Chamber Board as well. And, the comedy club venue producer that was mentioned, that was a lead that we generated for Justin as well. So this is something that the Worcester Chamber is very invested in. You have our full-time resources backing this as well. And that's certainly something that we'll remain committed to with Lauren and the support of the local business community too. So this is, we view it as a huge economic driver potentially for downtown Clinton. And like was mentioned before, you conducted millions in streetscape reforms, which look incredible, and people are really talking about that. But you have what is unfortunately right now becoming more of an eyesore in the middle of that. And I think that this is a pretty unique opportunity because these are capital improvements for a long time that it will be in effect. And with considering the use of ARPA funds, it is for rejuvenating downtowns and for trying to alleviate some of the causes of COVID and some of the economic impacts that it had. And I think I couldn't really think of a better way to utilize that for the business community than to invest in the Strand.
and I want to emphasize how lucky we are to have Justin being the business owner, because this could have gone south a year ago and someone, rightfully so, could have sold the building. And with that, there would not be a conversation held. So we're really lucky to have Justin on board. He's taken a lot of hits during this himself, so for him to step up and act in moving forward and helping the Strand, we're really fortunate to have someone on board.
I'd like to echo that too, because that has been from the beginning, from the first conversation that I had with Justin. He did share a commitment, almost an obligation to keep the history of the Strand alive, to keep it as a functioning theater. There are other options for him that he could be looking into that might be more lucrative for him in the short term. but he has given a commitment to try to work with us and to try to keep the movie theater functioning for, the next generation of Clintonians.
And the last thing I'll add is the fact that the town would be investing in this is something that is very, very attractive to people who would be interested in a site like this. I mean, I do business recruitment. I talk with site selectors. I talk with real estate professionals and people who are C-suite executives. And their first question is, what money can you give me to invest in your community? And so if we're offering close to $500,000 in funds, not only from the municipality, but from the state as well, and technically from the federal government because it's coming through our ARPA funds, that is a powerful statement that would be a very attractive thing to an investor, the right investor.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think that's the key. We need the right investor. I think everyone on this board is serious about this, and if we don't see someone who's as serious as we are, then I'm not going to do business with them. And just please make that clear to everyone who's interested in this, because we're not dinking around anymore.
Right.
Absolutely.
Correct.
I think, looking at the two proposed options, to your point, bringing up upwards of $500,000 being available, an interested owner is only going to have access to what they're able to bring to the table, right? So on the match scenario, versus I think in the past there was like an option talked about allocating it and then making it available for anybody that was interested. So I think right out of the gate you're going to have a serious priorities that
and that was our Director of Economic Development insisted on that, and I think ultimately that's the wise choice to ensure that it's a match, so that the potential investors, they have skin in the game as well. So I think that is probably the best strategy to identify a serious long-term partner, is to have it structured in this manner.
And also to echo the earlier statement of the property owner and the financial hardship that the pandemic and being willing to work with the previous owners on foregoing rent, that's greatly appreciated and shows your level of investment into the Clinton community. And where time is of the essence, I think this is something that seems like it's a very attractive opportunity. It has the blessing of the community and economic developer, the director. I think let's make a decision tonight.
And the Clinton Chamber
and I'm sorry. Yep.
And so there's, I mean, it's not something that has not happened overnight. This has been a long, a year and a half, almost 2 years to kind of come to this point to request this. So there has been some legwork done. So we're just excited that hopefully this could be the next step towards reopening the Strand. Very, very important step if the board so decides.
Any other questions or discussion from the board?
I would just like to thank Lauren for bringing back the Clinton area Chamber of Commerce.
Thanks.
It's
I appreciate
big
the
addition
support
to
from
the town.
everyone.
It's nice to see it again.
Thanks, I appreciate the support.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. If there are no other questions, I would like to make a motion that we allocate $300,000 out of the ARPA funds for future Strand movie theater renovations and form a subcommittee tasked with approving expenditures. All expenses out of the Strand renovation fund will only be available through a match in spending by the building owner or business owner, or a zero interest loan not to exceed $100,000.
I'll second with questions. So when we say form, the board's forming this committee?
Correct.
Okay. I'll second.
Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, again, I'm happy to earmark this money, but spending $1 is going to be a much higher mountain to climb. So I look forward to working with the chamber and the owner to find a serious suitor who can help us get the Strand that this town deserves.
Right, and just to be clear, the intention of this motion is to allocate the money for this purpose, but the release of the funds are gonna go through the subcommittee. So this money will be off the table for, only be able to be used for Strand renovations that will go through the subcommittee, unless we get to a point approaching the June 2024. If there is still money in there, then we'll have to get together and reallocate it to something else so we don't lose it.
Excellent. Any other questions? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you. All right, so the last item under ARPA,
I mean, do we need her?
Unless
don't
people have
think so.
questions.
yeah,
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve, is the number still 500?
yes, it is.
$500,000, it's not on this thing, right?
It's on there.
Oh, there it is, sorry.
Yeah.
It's on our red. I move that we approve $500,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act funds to Wheat. Do we need it's the specific usage is for their building project?
Right. It would be part of their funding for their overall plan to.
For the High Street building
down on High Street.
Thank you.
Sleevey?
Policy, that was a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you very much to Jody and her team. This is going to be something great for the town. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. With that being said, one more community announcement. I just want to say congratulations to all of Clinton High School's seniors for the class of 2023, as well as any other Clintonians who are graduating from any surrounding high schools and colleges, programs, universities, so on. We'll be meeting, we have town meeting on Monday, June 5th at 7 p.m. That will be held downstairs in the auditorium. We talk about civic engagement. Here's an opportunity to get engaged. We will be meeting, the select board will be meeting next Wednesday, additionally. And then the following Monday, June 12th, is the annual town election. With that being said, thank you very much and have a great evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.